I grew up playing Doom, starting with Doom 3 on the original Xbox and having access to the first two Doom games that way. I would lose track of time in the same way everyone else did in the 90s when the series first hit. I felt the same hooks attached to me, putting the mark of the beast on my chest, solidifying me as a Doom fan until the end of time. But it would take me a long time for me to discover that there was another Doom game, released in '97, at the height of the N64, when almost every title had the 64 at the end of each title. Doom was no exception to this rule, and therefore was graded the title Doom 64. A few years before, Doom 2 came out, exactly 10 months after the first one. There was a discourse among the Doom community, because some of them felt let down that it seemed just about identical to its predecessor. But on March the 31st, '97, that would change with a new Doom release, that would only release on the N64. To the surprise of many, it came out not quite what people had expected. The more colourful but hellish tone was gone. The metal-inspired music that got you pumped also went out the window. What came out instead was something along the realm of horror, given a more ambient but foreboding atmosphere to contend with. It would also be a game that would be, for the most part, forgotten. With Quake 2 coming out the same year and Half-Life 1 a year after, people that didn't get to experience Doom 64 didn't know it existed unless they had a friend who owned a copy, or they found a source port that converted the core game onto the PC a few years after its initial release. A number of people thought Doom 3 was the game that changed Doom into a more horror-focused experience, and it is true. But in terms of atmosphere, sound, and visuals, Doom 64 came first. Once again, Hell has reared its hot face and is toying with the remnants of humanity once more. Following after the events of Doom 2 and Final Doom, a destructive protocol to smother the UAC facilities in poison was ordered, ensuring that no demons would ever resurface there. And for a while, the plan worked, and everyone moved on. Until a transmission came back, reporting an entity that started reviving all the dead demons, once again starting the wheel of time. As a result, you, the Doom guy, get sent there alone to put things right. Like the previous Doom entries, you go from level to level, finding keys and eventually the exit door. The game is 32 levels long, a few of them being secret levels, and the locations are grouped into chapters. After a number of levels are completed, you are faced with a wall of text that pushes forward the simple narrative that exists to embellish the Doom guy's actions. Again, you aren't sent here to talk. Your guns do the talking. The Doom guy isn't a human being that feels empathy for the Horde, but is rather a force of nature with a shotgun. The story isn't that important when there is really only one thing to do in this situation. The locations and levels all share an oppressive and almost silent atmosphere that stays consistent across the board. From the almost quiet ruins of the UAC facilities, the vast red mountains of hell, and finally the epicenter of the entity's domain, with fire in the sky showing you that you will burn like Icarus if you go up. Doom 64 in terms of setting feels way more authentic than the previous entries, utilizing more of Hell's symbols to drive in the seriousness of your situation, even though you're a certified killing machine. With the N64's graphical capability, it brought more detail than the vanilla classic Doom games were capable of at the time. It felt like a big upgrade. Now, despite the sudden change in the tone in contrast to Doom 1 and 2, Doom 64 still shares the same core gameplay and level structure. You move around, killing whatever gets in your way, collecting keys, finding secrets, reaching the exit door, and repeat. But that's not to say that Doom 64 is an exact replica like Doom 2 is compared to 1. This entry brings in its own spin, familiar but fresh. For starters, it revamps everything that's established, from both the gameplay and design perspective. You have more puzzles than ever before. The maps and their placeholder objects show a more dynamic purpose than what 1 and 2 were able to do at the time. Almost all the returning enemies from 2 make the scene, all with a new coat of paint and slight changes. For instance, the Arachnotron carries 2 cannons instead of 1. The Imp now has a new variant called Nightmare Imps. These guys move faster, are harder to see, and their purple fireballs move faster and hurt you more. But like their original cousins, they are quick to kill. One good shotgun blast will do the job. Because of the N64's limitations in regards to memory capacity, some enemies didn't make the roster this time around. You won't be seeing any commandos, which is a good thing, no archviles, spider demons, or revenants. They will not be missed. From a design standpoint, I love the new look of the demon roster. They've been given a lot more depth and detail. The pain elementals look fucking awesome, having the lost souls come out of the other mouths instead. the Cacodemon with its moving chains, the Mancubi with its backyard cybernetics, and many more. This level of treatment also extends to the weapons as well as the particle effects from both the demons and said weapons. The plasma rifle looks amazing, with the blue energy animating constantly, the chain gun with its hole placements and rotations, the chainsaw having 2 blades instead of 1, and the super shotgun's simple but smooth surface. I'm not too big on the main shotgun, however, design-wise. It doesn't look or feel as satisfying to use as the original shotgun, but at least it's just as effective. The rocket launcher has a recoil effect that could screw you over occasionally, depending on your positioning. I don't mind it. It does give you that feeling that it's powerful, and you wouldn't want to be the thing that eats the rocket. All the weapons handle great and have their own strengths and weaknesses depending on what you're up against. All the weapons from Doom 2 return, along with a new addition to the family, a weapon that actually ties in with the game's narrative, so to speak, the Unmaker. This is the weapon that more or less makes the BFG 9000 obsolete in certain cases, like the final boss for instance. But without the demon artifacts, the key items you need to upgrade the weapon, it's a piece of shit. Each demon artifact you find upgrades the level by 1. Having all 3 of them makes it pretty much the most powerful weapon in the game, but in order to find them, you have to find the secret level, so to speak, and because of Doom 64's obsession with puzzles, it'll be a lot trickier this time around. When you do the secret levels, you have to also look for the demon key artifacts. It's just one more item to find among all the other keys, so be on the lookout. In Doom 64, you have 4 difficulty levels. Be Gentle for easy, Bring It On for normal, I Own Doom for hard, and Watch Me Die for, well, harder. Don't worry, Watch Me Die isn't anything like Nightmare. You just take more damage and have more enemies to contend with, that's all. The game is pretty manageable for a while, but definitely picks up rather quickly after a few levels. Enemies will surprise you by hiding in corners or by being directly on the other side of a door. Also, the amount of puzzles is quite frequent. Add to the fact that it's already pretty easy to get lost because of its maze-like structure. The game can sometimes be difficult, but there are things to consider. For starters, the enemy projectiles are a lot easier to predict because of the slower speed. Most of them feel slower in comparison to Doom 1 and 2. If you're already used to developing a rhythm for dodging attacks and avoiding hit-scan danger zones, you will generally come out of it either unscathed or with minimal damage. In terms of sound and graphics, this is where Doom 64's advantages come in. When people debate the classics, people will generally agree that Doom 64 is just a much better looking game. Sound-wise, it's a mixed bag. It's more clearer and the sound quality is better. But it's also a matter of what sounds more pleasing to the ears. I like the plasma sounds in this more, but I like the shotgun sounds in 1 and 2 more. Same as with the demons. Again, in this aspect, it's just preference, but objectively speaking, Doom 64 performs better in the sound department as well as graphics. The metal-style tunes are now replaced with a more ambient tone that you can hear in every level. This was a decision made to give Doom 64 more of a horror feel. You know, the kind of feeling that you shouldn't be here. It does seem a bit jarring though, given the fact that your character has already seen the worst that hell has to offer. In the shoes of another, this decision to change the style of music would have made sense, making you feel uncomfortable and nervous. But you're the Doom guy, where the only thing they fear is you. But still, I like the soundtrack. It complements the oppressive and darker template that Doom 64 decided to go with. Doom 64 is one of the most underrated shooters in the FPS genre, the game that the franchise left behind long ago up until Doom 2016 acknowledged it once more. To me, it feels like the direct sequel that Doom 2 should have been, offering the same style of gameplay but with a different aesthetic and horror-like atmosphere. That would pave the way for Doom 3's complete transition into survival horror. Doom 64 has better graphics, better sound design, and more complex and structured levels than Doom 2. Nowadays, the game is pretty accessible, now having an official PC release and ports to the Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. It's a shame they didn't consider a PC release then, even though the intention was for it to be an N64 exclusive, which didn't have that much of a shell life to begin with. But thanks to the modding community, they managed to create enough demand for Bethesda and id to get off their asses and give Doom 64 the proper respect it deserves. Thank you for watching.